Well, it is a shame that both the Obama administration officials and the Biden administration officials will take to their grave their policy on Syria. I had a conversation with Secretary of State Antony Blinken. He said to me, it's a shame that I'll take to my grave the policy of the Obama administration on Syria, and he promised that under the Biden administration, Syria would not be forgotten. The fact is, during the Biden administration, Syria was completely forgotten. The Biden administration didn't just deprioritize Syria, it actually took the side of the dictator. And as the Syrian revolutionaries were liberating Syria and liberating these horrible genocidal dungeons, the statement that came out of the White House was, these are terrorists, we have nothing to do with this, and we call for de-escalation. De-escalation of what? Liberating babies from jails? The Biden administration must be held accountable for what they've done. They didn't commit the crimes themselves, but they were complicit and in many ways enabled these crimes to happen. And at the very least, history should denote what they've done. And I'm hopeful that with the advent of a new administration in the next, few weeks, that there will be a new page opened where the United States can see that the new Syria can be a very important and valuable ally to the United States. So I think the main reason why the United States chose to support the SDF and we're totally okay with the PKK, YPG elements that were actually registered in the United States as a terrorist organization is simply because of one man, Brett McGurk, who was appointed by the president to run the show in Syria. And he decided that, look, Esed's not that bad. Everybody else who's going against him could be a terrorist, and we will only work with the SDF, knowing that a lot of their leadership and a lot of members within them were literally a terrorist organization, the PKK. The biggest victims of the YPG and the PKK were the Syrian Kurds themselves. Kurdish parties, Kurdish civilians, Syrian Kurds in general. Yet they were completely marginalized. The other victims were all the Arabs that lived in these areas where they were, kidnapped sometimes, their rights were violated, etc. The main answer is Brett McGurk, the Middle East North Africa director for President Biden. And the blame is President Biden. He's the one that put him in that position. So we can't just, say it's just Brett. It's Brett and the president who appointed him to this position. And the fact is, the SDF fought alongside the Esed regime against the liberation of Aleppo, against the liberation of other towns. And the revolutionaries, to their credit, tried to deconflict. As Esed and the Iranian militias and everyone ran away, those that remained were some of these YPGs. They made a deal, told them move over to the northeast and let us liberate these areas, without the spilling of blood. It shows how patient, how pragmatic, and how smart the rebels were in liberating Syria. By the way, the YPG and the PKK, which again had held very key positions within the overall SDF, ran it, weren't just coordinating with the Esed regime, they were coordinating with Iran and with Russia on a massive level. I mean, the leadership of SDF would travel to Moscow and make deals in Moscow. If you look at the behavior of the PKK in Iraq, they were coordinating directly with Iranian-backed militia groups. These groups were attacking U.S. military. They have U.S. soldiers' blood on their hands. So it's another mind-boggling decision to support them. But it all goes back to one president, Biden, and who he picked to run the Middle East, North Africa, Brett McGurk, who frankly, I think, is just simply racist against Syrians. I can't think of any other reason. And the fact is, Captagon wasn't being done by groups working on behalf of Esed. It was Esed and his family themselves that were directly implicated. I mean, we went to a couple of places that were like the homes and the properties of the 4th Division and of Maher al-Assad, Bashar al-Assad's brother. And the Captagon factories there were just immense. The fact is that the Esed regime, and what we were able to ascertain from this trip, was directly involved in this narco-trafficking, crimes on a massive level. And they were making like $2.3 billion with a B a year. It's crazy to me because going back to this administration's reaction, Captagon, which was also reaching the United States, but it hadn't been made public yet, the chemical weapons which the regime used, the torture, the coordination and support of Hezbollah and Iranian-backed militias that were attacking U.S. bases. When I'm on U.S. bases, we would get attacked by Iranian-backed militias facilitated by the Esed regime. And despite all of that, this administration was calling for de-escalation. This administration was trying to desperately save the tyrant, the war criminal, the narco-trafficker at the last minute. It is unbelievable, and I am glad that all of this is documented, that the world will know, and the Syrian people will tell their story, and the world will tell the story of what the United States didn't do. Not every administration, but the Biden administration by far was the worst on Syria.